And a very happy Tuesday to you at 12:08 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
He's officially running. A friend of the show, Steve Hilton, was in Huntington Beach today to announce that he is running for governor of California. He spoke on many subjects that affect Californians and ended strong with the bullet train.
The bullet train. The ultimate monument to Democrat misrule. $130 billion over budget, 20 years late. That's not a bullet train. That's a bull train.
Oh, my.
Whoa, everyone's doing the swearing.
Bring it home, Steve.
And Californians have been taken for a ride on it for 15 long years of one-party rule. BS on crime. BS on homelessness. BS on housing. BS on everything. It is time to stop the Democrats' bull train, get this state back on track, and restore the California dream for everybody.
If all politicians and prospective politicians are going to start cursing in their speeches, who exactly are we protecting by not playing it?
At this point, what's the difference between channels 2 through 13 and the rest of them on your box? Or the radio stations in your car and the podcast you listen to through your phone?
Gavin Newsom curses on his own podcast.
If all the people making the rules are going to talk like dirty club comics, I think at this point we could just open up the floodgates.
That's a bull train.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, yesterday it was the State of the City address in the City of Angels, and embattled Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass made the announcement that there will be budget cuts coming to Los Angeles.
There's going to be, unless she gets a bailout from Gavin Newsom, 1,600 layoffs in the city of Los Angeles. And while she has maintained her promise that she's not getting rid of any sworn police officers, the majority of those layoffs come from the LAPD staff, the civilian personnel. So there's going to be no one running the shop while the officers are out in the field, which means officers are going to get off the field and have to go run the shop.
Okay, so here's what we learned yesterday. She went in front of Black Lives Matter and told them that she can't cut the police budget because that's politically untenable. But she would continue to fund all of their programs that have been highly problematic, including some that have actually been funding gang activity. She said none of them would be laid off. In fact, some of them, including the ex-cons, would be getting $20,000 a year pay increases because she fears if she doesn't do that, they're going to go back to killing people. Then she goes in front of the audience at City Hall and announces no cuts to the police department, which I guess is technically true if that just includes sworn officers. But let's say you're the person that issues the guns, and you are a classified personnel. You're someone who's not a sworn officer. You're just someone who works for the police department, and that position is eliminated. Who do you think is going to do that? You think they're just not going to give them guns? How about the person that does the scheduling? If that person, who may or may not be a police officer, I'm not alleging specifically these are the jobs, but I'm just saying support jobs. You know what types of jobs those will be at a police department. The work still has to get done. It's not like you can just not make a schedule.
That's where the majority of the layoffs are. There's other departments as well, but the ones that she wanted to brag about to Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, not a whole lot of cuts there. And guess what? Massive billion-dollar budget isn't seeing any cuts. That's right, Karen Bass's homeless budget. No cuts there.
In a roundabout way, this is probably costing us more money. I would imagine you pay those classified people a lot less than what you pay a sworn officer. So you'll be paying people a lot more money to do these administrative jobs, and then you have fewer people that you can put out on the streets.
Well, and this is going to lead to what we've already seen in other cities with police shortages, a lot more mandatory overtime, which does fill those gaps, but costs us way more money.
I'll tell you, I just about spit my coffee out at the newspaper this morning. Did you see the big piece that the New York Times did on Karen Bass today?
They're writing about Karen?
They wrote about Karen. And in the long article, the point of the article was the people of L.A. still haven't forgiven Karen Bass for being gone during the fires. And the spin in the New York Times, as you can imagine, was that we were being unfair to her. And in the piece, they talk about what her critics are saying, and they list Rick Caruso, who's been critical of her since the fire started. And then they talked about the owner of the L.A. Times, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who tweeted out that she cut the budget of the L.A. Fire Department. And they referred to it as something like a discredited conspiracy theory or something that was proven to be not true. And I thought to myself, oh no, that is factually false. She cut the budget of the L.A. Fire Department. That is an empirical fact. And the source of that empirical fact was the chief of the LAFD who produced the receipts.
And then got fired for it.
And then the New York Times is suddenly saying, oh, no, that's a conspiracy theory. That never happened. She never cut the fire department budget. That's a rumor that her critics are spreading to make her look bad. And you think, thank God Elon owns Twitter. Because in the old days, and I said this at the very beginning of the fires, and I know I'm right about this, if he didn't own X, and the powers that be were in charge of getting the information out, we would have been told that she'd never cut the fire department budget, and anyone who said otherwise was spreading fake news. And they would have claimed that there was water in the fire hydrants, and they would have said that anyone who said otherwise was spreading fake information. And the reason that her poll numbers are as bad as they are is that people actually know the truth. Maybe the people in New York will read this and will think that she never cut the fire department budget. But they're already bending over backwards trying to rehabilitate her image by telling lies to the people. That just pissed me off this morning.
It's not a namsy-pamsy thing.
And I do not want to start the day drinking black coffee on an empty stomach, getting my blood pressure up. I had too much to do this morning. All right, let's get back to the State of the City address and the big budget unveiling.
For more on Karen Bass's looming budget layoffs, here is KCAL.
My proposed budget, unfortunately, includes layoffs.
LA comes to grips with a massive budget shortfall. Mayor Karen Bass announces major layoffs in LA as the city is still trying to
Guys, we can turn down the music now.
Oh, yeah. This band is just working overtime.
The city is still trying to rebuild from the Palisades fire. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Pat Harvey. LA Mayor Karen Bass addressing the nearly $1 billion deficit during her State of the City speech. It could lead to layoffs of 1,600 people. But
she did say she's going to go up to Sacramento this week and see if she can get some money.
And they should only give it to her if they're all on drugs.
Well, some of them are.
But it wouldn't affect the fire department or police, as multiple departments could be consolidated.
Well, it is affecting the police. So already that's wrong.
You see, this is the game that they play, though. Because she's not cutting any sworn officers, she's saying there are no cuts to the police department, when in fact there are. The union doesn't care because their people were protected. So my guess is she went to the police officers union, the LAPPL, and cut a deal with them and said, okay, we need to make cuts to police. If I make sure not to hit your people, will you back me up when I say I didn't cut the police budget? And that's, I'm almost sure, what happened.
KCAL News political reporter Tom Wade is live in downtown LA to fill us in. Tom?
And good evening to you.
Was that Tom Waite groaning?
Was that him or was that Pat?
LA to fill us in. Tom?
That was him.
But then I think she did the same thing.
What's going on over there?
I don't know. Okay, now let's add Gavin to the mix.
All right, let's move on.
And good evening to you, Pat. Mayor Bass is facing an unprecedented set of challenges. Many mayors have not faced so many crises like this all at once, but she is trying to project optimism even though there is so much tough news.
It's the biggest budget shortfall the city's ever seen, even going back to the recession, because the city's budget is way larger than it was back in 2008 or 2009. It has ballooned over the last decade.
Yeah, but if the useless employees are untouchable, that gives you less wiggle room.
At City Hall Monday, LA Mayor Karen Bass had to deliver one of the toughest State of the City addresses in recent history.
By the way, I am not making this up. I was listening to this in the car on the way home yesterday, and Karen Bass was talking about the future of the Olympics and how great it's going to be. And I was getting off the 405 freeway at Burbank Boulevard, where you're driving over the Sepulveda Basin. And she was literally talking about all the events that are coming to the San Fernando Valley and the Sepulveda Basin. And I look to my left, and what do I see? A fire truck putting out a homeless fire in the Sepulveda Basin.
Well, you just wait until she announces that the backstroke competition is going to be in a pothole after a rain.
And unveil next year's proposed budget that includes huge cuts.
Our city faces a more than an $800 million deficit.
How did we get here? January's historic fire disaster.
No, it was before that.
No, they've been mismanaging this budget for a long time.
That decimated homes and tax revenue. Hollywood's hemorrhaging of jobs.
Well, that's been going on for a very long time, so you can't really blame it on that.
Well, that started when Ryan Seacrest started taking all the jobs.
To other states and countries, and now a chaotic trade war that could further deplete city revenue.
Most of the problems with the budget that she introduced happened way before all of those things.
No, but the fires, that's the new COVID. You just blame everything on COVID, and then you get the money that you want. She's going to blame everything on the fires and gloss over all of her failures.
No, part of the reason that they're so in the hole is they budgeted for $100 million of liability settlements, and they had $300 million. They gave everybody in the city raises, not just police and fire, including 50% raises to the ex-con community intervention workers. What that actual job is, nobody knows.
What's the deal with the lawsuits? Is our infrastructure so bad that people are just breaking their limbs right and left? Or is Better Call Saul getting the best of our city attorneys?
Oh, it's both. Let's not forget a few years ago when Mark Ridley Thomas was indicted for his corruption that he was later convicted on, the LA City Council removed him and then replaced him with Herb Wesson, who shouldn't have been there because he was already termed out, and then replaced him with Heather Hutt. And Mark Ridley Thomas successfully sued the city and got a settlement for all of his back pay while he was on trial for corruption. So we had to pay him and Heather Hutt at the same time.
It's amazing we have the money to keep the lights on.
We actually don't.
Converging crises that are forcing painful cuts.
We identified new revenue to offset costs. We reduced funding for the mayor's office. We further...
By the way, you could reduce that a hell of a lot more. And why isn't she taking a pay cut? Why aren't the city councilors taking pay cuts? How about we get rid of all their drivers and they all have to take Metro?
And what did she cut from her own budget? The travel budget to Ghana?
We further eliminated ghost positions.
You mean like when you eliminated the ghost positions last year for mechanics for the fire department and there was nobody to fix the fire trucks, and that's why there were so many fire trucks that couldn't be used during the fires?
Sounded good at the time.
And we postponed some capital projects. Our city faces a more than an $800 million deficit.
Right now, Bass says the city is looking at laying off just over 1,600 city workers. Some of those cuts could come from consolidating city departments that handle social programs. Bass says no sworn...
But most of it's LAPD civilian staff.
And they're going to get real cute with the language here. No sworn officers have been laid off, but that doesn't mean there's no cuts to police or public safety.
Bass says no sworn LAPD officers or firefighters will be impacted, and that LAFD's budget increased with more than 200 new positions.
Well, she's not suicidal.
No. You would have to be suicidal to cut the fire department budget after the fires.
There's also funding for more paramedics. Bass says funding for homeless programs will be protected.
Paramedics right now in the condition of this city are just Uber drivers for bums.
Bass says funding for homeless programs will be protected.
That is where most of the waste, fraud, and abuse in this city is. $1 billion out of that $14 billion budget, and she's not touching it.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you were at Coachella this weekend and you missed yesterday's show because you were, let's say, still hungover, Randy, you can go back and find out what you missed out on.
I don't think hungover is what's going on with the people at Coachella.
I was trying to be polite.
Stagecoach, it'll be hungover. But Coachella, it's when you're coming down off of Molly. And I'm so glad that I actually forgot what the term was. But hey, if you missed a bunch of our podcasts, go listen to them by searching for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's the Apple Podcasts app,
quite frankly,
the iHeartRadio app,
quite frankly,
the Spotify app,
Quite frankly,
anywhere you get your podcast, you can get The John Phillips Show.
quite frankly.
And I'm not telling you again.
That's your final warning.
Why would they name a party drug after the unsinkable Molly Brown? And what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. The LA County Fair is back, celebrating its 103rd anniversary May 2nd through the 26th. Don't miss the LA County Fair Concert Series. Tickets on sale at lacountyfair.com. But right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-795-222. That's 1-888-795-222. Gets a pair of tickets to see Cheap Trick on Friday, May 23rd. Tickets furnished by the LA County Fair. Good luck dialing.
Right now, we're going through L.A. Mayor Karen Bass unveiling her budget for the city of L.A.
Let's go back to this report from KCAL in Los Angeles.
Assistant Professor of Politics at Pomona College, Sarah Sidwani, says there will be intense pressure on the mayor to avoid major disruptions in city services.
You mean like cutting 400 police staffers?
I love the fact that they don't even have the personnel to respond in a timely manner now. And now there's going to be budget cuts made to the police department that we're clearly not allowed to brand as budget cuts. And that's going to lead to further delays. And we're just going to have to act like it's a national sort of malaise.
Maybe we should just for 1 year do a little experiment. We could 100% balance the budget right now. Nobody has to get laid off if we just cut off all the money that's going towards the homeless. We don't spend a dime of it. And then a year from now, we see if anything actually changed.
I'll tell you what, though. You talk about Karen Bass being politically savvy because she was Speaker of the Assembly and she was a longtime member of Congress. What she did here is horrible in terms of public policy, and it's horrible in terms of the services that will be delivered to the people of Los Angeles. But politically, what she did here was quite savvy, where if you go to the union that matters, and typically when you're talking about a big organization, whether it be the police department, the school district, the fire department, whatever, you have a bunch of different unions that represent different work groups, but there's really only one or two that matter. In case of the police department, it's the LAPPL, the LA Police Protective League. They represent the sworn officers. So if you go to them and you say, here's the deal, we're going to make sure to protect your work group. We're not going to lay anyone off. We're not going to cut your pay. We're not going to punish you in the next contract negotiation, but we're going to cut elsewhere in the department. But you have to back me up when I say I didn't cut the police budget, and then you get on the same side as labor, then it doesn't matter if you actually cut the budget. It's going to be sold to the public that you didn't.
That is the challenge, is to minimize the number of layoffs, to keep as many services running. But at the same time, there have to be cuts from somewhere.
Except the homeless budget. And, of course, all the programs that BLM LA loves. Because if she cuts them, she's going to have protesters at her door.
Why wouldn't you target them, the homeless programs in particular? If the more you spend, the more homeless you get, then let's just see what it's like if you just don't spend any money on them at all. Or at least you cut it.
And it was one of the things she kept saying over and over at the State of the City address was how in 2016 there were 25,000 homeless people. Then we passed Measure Triple H, a sales tax to spend even more money on it, and we got up to 48,000.
Yeah, what does that tell you about how you're spending that money?
And certainly this is the mayor's first attempt at trying to pull that together.
For Angelenos, there's frustration over the budget crisis and criticism over spending, especially on the homeless crisis, where multiple audits have shown officials cannot account for billions of dollars.
You almost would get a free pass from the average person if you said, well, it turns out all these programs are completely ineffective and some of them are corrupt, and so we're cutting off all that funding to balance the budget. But no, we're not touching the homeless budget. All the crooked nonprofits are still getting their funding, and we're laying off important city staffers.
But for her, it's ideological. I mean, don't forget, this was the woman that was enamored with Fidel Castro.
There was that.
I don't think there is an audit on those funds. I think they just got to spend blank checks and really not be held accountable for it. And the fact is that they probably lacked internal controls.
There's also concern that LA is becoming even more unaffordable. Yvonne Bolido, who lives in Echo Park, says city leaders have to prioritize maintaining and creating public spaces along with social services.
What?
You see, this is why we have the problems we do.
I would say like more mental health services should be like prioritized, because I think money is already going through to like police and like cops and stuff. So I feel like just a little piece of that should also be put back into the people.
See, here's the problem with LA. Her vote counts just as much as yours.
Okay, we spend more money on homelessness than we do on fire. We just need a little bit out of public safety to spend on homelessness, and then we'd have no problem.
The city council will now take up the budget. Both the mayor and city council can.
And every city council person has put out like a little statement on Instagram. And you know Ulysses is going to try to twist the knife even more and actually defund the police, because this is her time to shine. And Karen Bass can't really afford to piss her off.
Well, I'm sure in private, Karen Bass is telling her we did defund the police. We just didn't hit the sworn officers, but now the sworn officers are going to be doing book work, and they're not going to be on the streets. So effectively, she did. She may not be making that argument publicly because she knows it would be suicidal. But privately, why not have that conversation with the DSA members? If you want to keep them in line, that should make them happy.
The city council will now take up the budget. Both the mayor and city council can work on this until the end of May. That's when they've got to come up with an official city budget for the following year. Mayor Bass says they will also go to Sacramento and ask for more money, but
good luck with that. If Gavin gives Karen Bass a bailout, doesn't he then have to also give a bailout to San Francisco, who's got a budget shortfall, San Jose, that's got a budget shortfall, Oakland, that's got a budget shortfall, San Diego, that's got a budget shortfall? They're all broke right now.
If you're a member of the state legislature and you represent Orange County or the Central Valley or San Diego or the East Bay or whatever, and you vote to bail LA out, just know they'll appreciate the gift, but your money ain't coming.
Sacramento, the state, is already facing its own massive budget deficit, so we'll see if any help really can come from there. Reporting live in downtown LA, I'm Tom Waite, KCAL News.
There you go. That's the latest on Karen Bass's announcement of 1,600 layoffs. A quarter of that will be police civilian staffers.
I'll tell you, after looking at the election results in Oakland, where Barbara Lee, who's been in Congress for decades and never held municipal office and never shown any particular interest in municipal issues and got crushed when she ran for U.S. Senate and ran a completely inept campaign, decided that she was going to run on Sheng Tao's platform and become the next mayor of Oakland, and the people bought into it. I think it's entirely possible that Karen Bass is going to be reelected. I really do. And up until the point that I saw that Barbara Lee was elected, I thought Karen Bass was probably done, that her goose was cooked. And now I'm having second thoughts on that.
You want to show a city where everything got as bad as it could possibly be, and the people even voted to recall their sitting mayor and then decided to replace her with worse version of that. LA is screwed.
And that same New York Times piece that I referenced before, where they claimed that Bass did not cut the fire department budget and they were working to rehabilitate her image, they interviewed people who were upset with her for being in Ghana when the fires were going on. And essentially, the takeaway from all of their interviews was that they're mad at her, but they're willing to forgive her, and that she's doing a good job.
Maybe they should come here and smell how Skid Row smells like.
Well, the reporters don't know any different, but the people who live here should know better, and they were the ones that said that they're ready to forgive her for being gone and for all of the screw-ups during the fires. And I don't know if you saw this, but do you know that the police union has already endorsed her for re-election?
Oh, no.
Which is why I think she cut a deal with them with this budget. There's no other explanation as to why the police union would endorse her. They got behind Caruso last time. That made sense. Getting behind her this early after all of her failures makes no sense unless there's an additional deal.
Well, I mean, if you're the police union and your number one job is to make sure that your union members are getting the highest salaries possible, guess what happens when you cut a whole bunch of civilian staffers? That means the sworn officers are going to be doing a lot of 12-hour days and a lot of 16-hour days, and the overtime is going to add up. So it's going to have a positive effect on that.
Oh, sure. And then all of these jobs that were never really part of your duties are now part of your duties, and the jobs are all going to be administrative in nature. So if you have people in your work group who are obese or they just let themselves go, or for whatever reason they don't want to ride around in a patrol car anymore, well, now you can be the one that does the schedules. Now you can be the one that issues the guns. Now you have an easy job that we used to pay someone a lot less money to perform. Well, so I'm sure from their point of view, it offers their membership more flexibility.
Well, and we've seen this time and time again. When you have someone that's near the end of their career, they're looking to retire in a couple of years, your pension is based on your last year's salary. So if you do a whole bunch of mandatory overtime in that last year, your pension's going to balloon quite a bit. So good for you.
Well, you can do that and take an easy job, but get paid as if you're on the front line. I'm telling you, that is the only thing that makes sense. The only reason that would explain away why that union endorsed her.
Oh, yeah. But, of course, all of this is very short-sighted because those overtime budgets are going to blow the budget next year. And then who are they going to cut next year?
But from their point of view, they don't care. The union's job is to protect the pay and benefits of its membership.
I wish our union did that.
Workplace safety, the condition of the overall budget, none of that matters. A lot of these members, by the way, don't even live in the city of L.A.
Well, they can't afford to.
No. I would love to see what percentage of LAPD officers actually live in L.A. I mean, if you had to patrol the streets and you saw all the insanity that went on in L.A., would you live there?
Well, there's a reason they all live in Simi.
So from their point of view, the condition of the city really doesn't matter. They just want to make sure that they make the money the most money they can make and the best benefits they can get. And Godspeed. Go for it. That's a job I wouldn't want to do. But I'm just saying from the overall point of view of the condition of the city, if you cut the support staff for the police department, you can brand that as not cutting the police department. You're cutting the police department. I'm sorry. You may not be cutting the sworn officers, but the ability of that department to respond to the needs of the city is going to diminish. That is a fact. Well, we know that voters overwhelmingly approved Prop 36 in November. Prop 36 was the Tough on Crime initiative that would repeal much of Proposition 47, which essentially allowed retail theft and handcuffed judges in dealing with drug addicts. And Randy, we're already seeing the results.
In the Inland Empire, it's leading to more arrests and more prosecutions. For more on this, here is KCAL in Southern California.
State law on retail thefts aims to stop shoplifters from getting away with it, and it appears to be working. KCAL's Nicole Comstock says hundreds of people have been busted in the Inland Empire, in fact, since Prop 36 went into effect in December.
In fact, I think they got after a whole family that went to steal from that Target in Upland that we did a show from.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
The kid was trying to carry out a TV.
What do they call that shopping center? The Colonies?
Local law enforcement officers say they can finally start to hold some of those repeat thieves accountable for their crimes. And if you follow any of their accounts on social media, maybe you've noticed some of these shoplifters getting busted more often now at these larger corporate-owned stores. But some small businesses tell us they really need some help with this issue, too.
Yeah, it's very hard to have this kind of small business.
Muhammad Ali has...
Not that Muhammad Ali.
Whoa. Does this guy float like a butterfly and sting like a bee?
Muhammad Ali has been running his ranch.
Why did his parents do that?
You know what he should do? He should change his name to Lou Alcindor.
Muhammad Ali has been running his Rancho Cucamonga clothing store, Attitudes Unlimited, for 22 years. He says thieves steal from his small business on Baseline and Carnelian, sometimes every few weeks.
I'm a Taekwondo black belt for that.
Why don't you go after these people then?
Yeah, if you're a black belt, take him down.
So he does float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
This story is getting very interesting and for all the wrong reasons.
Well, then.
I can't run no more. I'm old.
This is the spread of business cards he's accumulated from past police reports. He says none of the thieves were caught.
Left, front, door.
I don't call no more because it's just wasting time.
But that could change for him soon because of Prop 36. The law allows anyone convicted of a third theft in California to be charged with a felony and possibly sentenced to 3 years in prison.
Although it might get kicked down to jail because of AB 109, and then if the jails are full. But hey, it's something. It's a step in the right direction.
If he stopped calling the cops in Upland because nothing happened, and that is a recent event, how long ago do you think he would have stopped calling the cops if his business was in L.A.?
Previously, thefts of merchandise totaling less than $950 were charged as misdemeanors under Prop 47. The SoCal News Group did a deep dive into the impact of Prop 36 in the Inland Empire.
That means the Redlands Daily Fax was involved.
That's my paper, baby.
Following the Riverside County Sheriff's robbery burglary suppression team as they busted alleged shoplifters in Lake Elsinore. Since Prop 36 went into effect in December, the SoCal News Group reports the Riverside County Sheriff's Office has presented 335 felony theft cases to their district attorney.
Those are all repeat offenders who, if they get 3 years of jail, well, guess what? They're not going to be out there stealing.
And you just got to start the paper trail.
The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department tells us from January to March, they conducted 4 retail theft operations and arrested 43 people on felony theft offenses, many of which qualified as felonies because of Prop 36.
It's good to have a new law to help our business.
Muhammad Ali approves.
What about Smoking Joe Frazier?
Ali says small business owners just want to make a living, and they shouldn't have to accept shoplifting as a part of it.
All they've been working, so they take all your profit.
And critics of the law argue it will just fill prisons with people who pose no real danger to the public.
Okay, we don't need to listen to those critics because they're full of crap.
Okay, we're getting emails from people saying that Muhammad Ali's name was Cassius Clay. I knew that. I just think it would be funny for someone to change their name to Lou Alcindor. It doesn't have to be someone named Muhammad Ali. You could be named Joe Smith. If you don't like the name and you need to change it to something, I think someone out there should change their name to Lou Alcindor.